I'm just so pleased to see you all. My name is Brooke. I'm the program director here at the Emily Dickinson Museum, and you're here at our August Art Walk, which happens, this is a monthly event, and we have different readings usually each month. You're in for a very special treat tonight, as many of you are aware. I'm sure that you, many of you know these fabulous women behind me. This is actually an art walk that's kicking off a whole weekend of activities that are part of the Emily Dickinson International Society annual meeting that the museum is co-hosting here in town. And so this art walk, I really see it as sort of a kickoff for that, because this is a weekend of people coming to Amherst because they enjoy thinking about how Emily Dickinson, what Emily Dickinson means to our contemporary lives. And so in putting together this evening of readings, we're just so excited to hear from these two women what Emily Dickinson has meant in their contemporary lives. And that will be from the point of view of a poet and from the point of view of a scholar. And it's just going to be a wonderful conversation. So it's my pleasure to introduce both Jan Freeman and Ellen Hart. Jan Freeman is the founder and executive director of the Paris Press, which she founded in 1995. We're going to hear a little more about that. And is also the author of 3 books of poetry and a chapbook. One of those books of poetry was the winner of a very prestigious award that I will tell you in a moment, which was the National Book Critics Circle Award.
No, just nominated.
Well, nominated, absolutely, absolutely nominated. Wonderful. And Ellen Louise Hart is a scholar of Emily Dickinson who was a co-editor of Open Me Carefully. Raise your hand if you have seen or read or heard of that book. Wonderful.
Oh,
what fantastic.
How's that going to affect sales?
Oh. Hopefully positively. Who has continued to, since publishing Open Me Carefully, continues to write particularly about Dickinson's manuscripts and their various publications since then. So we're so pleased to hear about the story of Open Me Carefully and of Paris Press and of a contemporary poet's sort of reaction to these letters and this relationship of Susan and Emily in this book. So without further ado, thank you very much for being here, and please enjoy Jan and Ellen.
Thank you, Brooke, and thanks, Michael, for inviting Ellen and me here to read what has turned into a collaboration in this interesting, magical way of my poems with Emily Dickinson's letters and letter poems. So I'll be reading my work, and Ellen will be reading Emily's work from Open Me Carefully, which is really quite, and it has been a wonderful experience putting this evening together. And it's magical to be in the Homestead here, where Emily wrote and where Sue visited, and next door to the Evergreens. It's also an honor to have published Open Me Carefully many years ago, close to the founding of Paris Press in 1995. I think it was our 4th book that the press published, and to have the opportunity to publish Emily Dickinson was just an extraordinary experience. It is like having the opportunity to publish also someone like Virginia Woolf. Paris Press publishes literature by women, literature that is groundbreaking, yet has been overlooked for some reason or another, either because of the subject matter, such as the subject of Open Me Carefully and the intimate relationship between Emily and Sue, and in the case of Virginia Woolf, On Being Ill is a book that was published by Hogarth Press. Woolf typeset it, and then it just disappeared. And so the press published a facsimile edition of that, and a more recent book that includes Woolf's mother's work, Notes from Sick Rooms. So we have On Being Ill, Notes from Sick Rooms, a text that is very popular now with narrative medicine and medicine of the humanities. But what we look for is work that has otherwise been neglected in one way or another, and the press tries to gain as much attention to these very worthy titles and authors. So I hope that you'll all support the press and look at our website and enjoy Open Me Carefully. And Ellen.
Well, I've been a lifelong Dickinson person, so the origin of Open Me Carefully partly came from a children's biography I received when I was 10 years old that Polly Lonsworth wrote that I read, and that was the beginning of a lifelong work on Dickinson. I attended Mount Holyoke College, partly because Dickinson did, and then I had a Fulbright in Germany and worked on a German poet who was connected to Dickinson, and then I went to Mills College, which is a women's college in Oakland, California that was founded by a Mount Holyoke graduate, and I wrote my master's thesis on Dickinson. And then I went to UC Santa Cruz and wrote my dissertation on Dickinson. So I've just kept going and going, and I've always either been writing about Dickinson or talking or teaching Dickinson since I was 10 years old. So that was 51 years ago. So that's one beginning of Open Me Carefully. I also want to say that the last piece I'm going to read tonight was the beginning of my realization of what I think is that the materials to Susan have been underrepresented, they've been misunderstood, they've been under-discussed, and so I've always had it sort of in my heart of hearts, the idea of helping to put them back into, or help to move them forward into the center of studies about Dickinson is the relationship, the complex, spiritual, intellectual, and erotic relationship with Susan Dickinson. And so the last poem I will read tonight, I discovered it as a letter in Thomas Johnson's letters, and I just thought, why isn't this a poem? And if it were a poem, we'd know a lot more about Susan Dickinson. So when I read it, maybe you'll see exactly what I mean. So, and then I met Martha Nell Smith and Susan Howe, and those were big influences in learning about the role of the manuscripts in the poetry itself, and how important it is to look at the original line breaks, which brings me to the publication of Paris Press. But I do want to say that Martha Nell Smith, my co-editor, this fall we celebrate 30 years of friendship and collaborative work. We met through Dickinson, and we've been working together for 30 years. Our goals, 3 goals. One was to establish the correspondence, to say what went to Susan and what didn't go to Susan. So I spent many years in the libraries at the Houghton and in Harvard and Amherst looking at manuscripts with magnifying glasses, looking at some sort of detective work and finding some things that had been erased and so on. So there were exciting parts, but basically just identifying everything we thought went to Susan. And then, so one goal was to establish that, including drafts of poems, because there's an idea that there was just one draft, but we believe there were more drafts, and I think we've been able to show that. And to put a collection together that reads like a novel, that has a storyline, which is partly what we're going to show this evening, and to present a print representation of the manuscripts with an emphasis on the way the line breaks actually look in her manuscripts, and to restore those lines, which would both show her natural rhythms and pauses in her poetry and her letters, and erase the distinction between the two genres. So it becomes an interesting question, what's a letter and what's a poem? So that's all the work that was laid out by Martha and me, sort of separately and then together. And then with Paris Press, I'm just very, very grateful. They produced a beautiful book. And Jan gets credit for many, many things to do with the cover. For example, the title, Open Me Carefully, was a little controversial in the beginning, but that was Jan's choice. It worked beautifully. And the language of intimate letters to Susan Hunting Dickinson was the perfect choice. Intimate. The calla lily, we had some back and forth about that, but that worked well. So it's a beautiful book, and I'm very grateful to Paris Press for producing a book that's a reader's edition, but with a scholarly textual apparatus, the notes and manuscript descriptions. So, yeah, so that's...
Oh, I just add to the title comes from the way that Emily signs one of her letters, Open Me Carefully. So that's where the title came from. And the
It would have been
photograph.
folded and then it would say open me carefully. So
And the-
literally.
Right, literally. And the photograph is an Imogene Cunningham photograph. So it was, yeah, it was a wonderful. And Jeff Potter, who is not here tonight but was the typesetter of the book, helped us to carefully maintain the width of the dashes as much as we possibly could within, publishing it as an offset book. It was very important for us to be as close as possible to the original manuscript. So the spacing, the capitalization, it was a very complicated book to typeset, and he did really a masterful job. So.
And it's also an affordable book. It's because many scholarly books are not, and this is.
So, yeah.
So are you ready to?
Yes, so we will dive in. And so as I said, I'll be reading my poems, and Ellen is going to start with a Dickinson poem, and we're going to be going back and forth in a call and response, which was Brooke's idea, which was an extraordinary idea that seemed almost impossible a couple of weeks ago, but then turned into a completely magical experience. So we're diving in.
One sister have I in our house, and one a hedge away. There's only one recorded, but both belong to me. One came the road that I came, and wore my last year's gown. The other, as a bird her nest, builded our hearts among. She did not sing as we did, it was a different tune. Herself to her a music as bumblebee of June. Today is far from childhood, but up and down the hills I held her hand the tighter, which shortened all the miles. And still her hung the years along, deceives the butterfly. Still in her eye the violets lie, moldered this many May. I spilt the dew, but took the morn. I chose this single star from out the wide night's numbers, Sue forevermore. Emily.
When she stretched her arms, the mist lifted and the red buds opened on the maple trees. She, in the garden, in pajamas, danced with her friend Isabel as the fledgling robins wobbled and flew from branch to ground. Cells multiplied in her body. Her fingers spread the warm, cool air as the mist disappeared like a curtain, open. I watched from the stone step, wrapped in peace, while she laughed and danced in front of fire. The peepers sang their high-pitched call through the bounty of night and morning.
Her breast is fit for pearls, but I was not a diver. Her brow is fit for thrones, but I have not a crest. Her heart is fit for home. I, a sparrow, build there, sweet of twigs and twine, my perennial nest. Emily.
What opened stayed open. I continue to serenade, focused on your throat and fingertips. A blue wig suggested the smiling but conventionally tragic clown. Hours thickened across rooms, sidewalks above and below rivers. With each departure, wooden dock, doorway, hospital bed, happiness followed me. I imagined it as an amulet. Without touch, your hands rested lightly on my chest.
Safe in their alabaster chambers, untouched by morning and untouched by noon, lie the meek members of the resurrection, rafter of satin and roof of stone. Grand go the years, in the crescent above them, worlds scoop their arcs, and firmaments row. Diadems drop, and doges surrender, soundless as dots on a disk of snow. Perhaps this verse would please you better, Sue. Emily. And from Susan to Emily. Private. I have intended to write you, Emily, today, but the quiet has not been mine. I send you this, lest I should seem to have turned away from a kiss. If you have suffered this past summer, I am sorry. I, Emily, bear a sorrow that I never uncover. If a nightingale sings with her breast against a thorn, why not we? When I can, I shall write. Sue.
Once the day opened its eyes, cast light and shadow over my feet. There she was, the sun. There the pear tree, there the peaches green hanging. Once the stars light and chance, breeze called love into every room. Then the morning held fog, soft as her breath. There she goes, and the next, always the first. Every color, some emblem of skin, some texture or radiant desire. Frozen, the light stops at the center of summer, the moon white in the blue sky, storm clouds pushing in from the west, as if heat from her legs covers the field, places its neck open to her mouth, or the lightest surface of her fingers over the rim each turn, when the hummingbird circles the garden, an echo of voice, sun over stones, and there, where the sky leans against her window, tenderness cast like a shadow over her hand, and we move through the hours until night, and some reprieve when the wind pulls lavender from the path and places it on the windowsill, her eyes shut. Hours away, and the moon above the rooftop, my hands as moonlight through her hair, lightly over her face, singing sleep and then desire, or simply light rising from the city streets as each morning places our hands closer until she stands beneath the door frame, rain gliding along the glass, the bee balm steady as the wind shakes. Here, the mountains lean our heads against the surface of brush, every weather a vehicle for time, her face. As I close my eyes, her mouth. As I move through the day, the trees. Awake, I am awake, every surface, some part of her body. She is everywhere.
Distance is not the realm of fox, nor by relay of bird abated. Distance is until thyself, beloved, Emily. I could not drink it, Sue, till you had tasted first, though cooler than the water was the thoughtfulness of thirst. Emily.
Missing brassiere. It might be with the tablecloths, or under the bed, or in the sheets, or on the chair beneath the other discarded clothes of passion. It might be by the shower door, the closet door, the bedroom door, or out by the roses, or under the peach tree, next to the cucumbers, after the party, unclasped and thrown against some heap, after the guests had gone to sleep, tucked in their distant beds by 3 in the morning. At 3 we were in, or were we out? The chill was out, the air was sweet. We must have been in beneath the sheets, the limbs, the skin, the tender treats, the honey, the lips, the tongue undone. The hours rocked us nearer sleep, But next to fleeting dreams, we touched and touched until the day rose up, and we rose too, to coffee and tea and more love in the garden. It might be with the paper goods, the bag of breads, the sweaters and vests that warmed the guests as night rose up around us. It might be in the closet still, or in a drawer, or in a tree. For all I know, it might be here, beneath my cushion, on my seat. The bra is gone, but she is near. Her breasts, exquisite nipples near and free, the sun or moonlight near, but it is gone, an absence quite indelible, as if its loss now threatens doom, appearing one dull afternoon, when meetings stir, or neighbors pass, or those ex-lovers lounge on grass. It might rise up and scream, I'm here, I've always been right here, beside you two in day and night, in love, sweet acrobats, of on and off and in between, like shaking leaves, like wind, like breeze, like kisses, breathing air between two sets of lungs as summer breathed. It will appear, the question, when? And who will fumble with those clasps? And will love last, past light against her neck, her knees, the moon, the sun, my heart undone, and autumn in the garden.
To miss you, Sue, is power. The stimulus of loss makes most possession mean. To live lasts always, but to love is firmer than to live. No heart that broke but further went than immortality. The trees keep house for you all day, and the grass looks chastened. A silent hen frequents the place with superstitious chickens, and still forenoons a rooster knocks at your outer door. To look that way is romance. The novel out, pathetic worth attaches to the shelf. Nothing has gone but summer, or no one that you knew. The forests are at home, the mountains intimate at night and arrogant at noon, and lonesome fluency abroad, like suspending music. Of so divine a loss, we enter but the gain, indemnity for loneliness that such a bliss has been. Tell Nettie that we miss him and cherish Captain Jakes. Tell Maddie that Tim's dog calls Vinny's pussy names and I don't discourage him. She must come home and chase them both, and that will make it square. For Big Maddie and John, of course, a strong remembrance. I trust that you are warm. I keep your faithful place. Whatever throng, the lock is firm upon your diamond door, Emily.
The beech tree insisted you stay. The window insisted you leave. The fireplace wanted you near. The leather chair rocking back and forth did not say go. The waffle maker with its thick umbilical cord, it loved your hands, loosening the batter free, wiping the oil off, placing it in a cupboard beneath the stove. What is life? A lemon, or a book, or a needle in your hands? When your hands rest lightly against my head, my hands rest lightly against your hands.
Sister, our parting was somewhat interspersed, and I cannot conclude which went. I shall be cautious not to, so as to miss no one. Vinny drank your coffee and has looked a little like you since, which is nearly a comfort. Austin has had 2 calls and is very tired. One from Professor Tyler and the other from Father. I am afraid they will call here. Bun has run away. Disaffection, doubtless, as to the supplies. Ned is a better quartermaster than his vagrant papa. The little turkey is lonely, and the chickens bring him to call. His foreign neck in familiar grass is quaint as a dromedary. I suppose the wind has chastened the bows on Maddie's impudent hat, and the sea presumed as far as he dare on her stratified stockings. If her basket won't hold the boulder she picks, I will send a bin. Ned is lamented, and his circus airs in the Rowan will be doubly sweet. Bella Dickinson's son is the only basso remaining. It rains every pleasant day now, and Dickens' Maggie's lawn will be green as a courtier's. Love for your brother and sister, please, and the dear lords. Nature gives her love. Twilight touches Amherst with his yellow glove. Miss me sometimes, dear, not on most occasions, but the seldoms of the mind. Emily.
The secret. Without the secret, you are you before the secret, quieter and less interesting to yourself. No one else knows the difference except the friend who knew the secret. You stop talking to her and she disappears. She lives along the path in the forest. She talks to trees and collects mica. She kisses the boulders in the forest. Sometimes you miss the secret and you miss whispering. You imagine there is no way to live without it, or there is no way to live with it. The secret reminds you it is vulnerable to wind and woodpeckers and ice that forces it to bow against the ground. You are a maple now, or a pine, without the secret. At night you patch together memories that preceded the secret. Candlelight replaces another voice, snow falls, rain falls, sugar season arrives and ends, the temperature in the forest changes. Time becomes the weeks, the months after the secret. It empties as your life encircles it.
To the faithful, absence is condensed presence. To others, but there are no others.
To the posts and beams that hold the house together. You cannot say goodbye to the walls, your back, your arms, here in the house, on the couch where she has begun to disappear. The pillows, her body hidden as she dreams. I want the restaurant. I want to go to the restaurant. Her arm reaching up. You begin to say goodbye to the pine floorboards. Does she reach for the dead, gathered in the trees above the roof, speaking to you? This goodbye of the body, this goodbye left after their flowers and wine bottles scattered on the tables and windowsills. As she travels closer to the ceiling than the floor, closer to the ocean, closer to there than the couch in the body of her house. Orange dog. I slept planning the construction of a home in the branches of the Copper Beech on Brattle Street. After I wakened, the orange dog followed me outside, then inside, then outside. A lightness we knew before her illness returned and covered our heads like a tent, shielding our privacy as nurses hovered. The paw of the orange dog usually rests on my leg when I waken. One morning she stared at my face, waiting for me to open the door to the snow-covered garden. She placed her paw on my shoulder, and a patch of sun appeared on the wall like a traveling yoke. Outside, with a cup of tea smoking from my hand, I followed the garden path on snowshoes, packing the snow so the orange dog's limp wouldn't sink her. In the kitchen, her tail thump-thumped the table beside her. Happiness in the beat of a tail. The orange dog slept beside my feet when I sat at my desk. She entered the kitchen when I made more tea. She barked at a squirrel that clung to the feeder, spilling sunflower seeds for the cardinals. Hard yellow light fell on the snow and entered the room, covering the dog's head and the floor around her. Light covered my hand when I placed it on her orange head. Light traveled to the copper beech, its trunk like an elephant's leg. I wanted to live in its branches like the Swiss Family Robinson, hidden by leaves the size of hands, far from family snares and pressing voices. She died, and I am not a home. The orange dog carries our losses in her injured leg. She scrubs my grieving skin with her attention.
Morning might come by accident, sister. Night comes by event. To believe the final line of the card would foreclose faith. Faith is doubt. Sister, show me eternity, and I will show you memory, both in one package lane and lifted back again. Be Sue, while I am Emily. Be next what you have ever been, infinity.
No one will understand what silences me now, since I cannot speak of you and hold your death like a pearl under my tongue.